In the world's most vital maritime choke point, through which much of the Asian trade passes, a Chinese power company is investing in a deepwater port large enough to host an aircraft carrier. Another state-owned Chinese company is revamping a harbor along the fearlessly contested South China Sea. Nearby, a railway network mostly financed by a Chinese government bank is being built to speed the Chinese goods along a new Silk Road. And a Chinese developer is creating a four artificial island that could become a home to nearly three-quarters of a million people and are being heavily marketed to the Chinese citizens. Each of these projects, along with many more, is being built in Malaysia, a Southeast Asian democracy at the heart of a Chinese effort to gain the global influence. But where Malaysia once led the pack in courting Chinese investment, it is now on the front edge of a new phenomenon, a pushback against Beijing as the nation fear becoming overly indebted for the project that neither viable nor necessary, except in their strategic value to China or used in propping up friendly strongmen. Malaysia's new leader, Mahathir Mohamad, wraps up a 5-day trip to Beijing on Tuesday in which his aim has been to free his country from some of its $250 billion of debt, some of it owed to the Chinese companies. His message in the meeting with officials and in the public comments has been unambiguous. We do not want a situation where there is a new version of a colonialism happening because the poor countries are unable to compete with rich countries, Mahathir said Monday at the Great Hall of the People in the Beijing after meeting with Premier Li Keqiang of China.
Well, I agree with you that free trade should be the way to go. But of course, free trade should also be fair trade. We should always remember that countries, the level of development of countries are not all the same. We do not want a situation where there is a new version of colonialism happening because poor countries are unable to compete with rich countries in terms of just open free trade. It must also be fair trade. In that, I support free trade together with President Lee, Prime Minister Lee, because I think this is the way to go for the whole world.
For the first time, it appeared that China's standard playbook for gaining favor was working in Malaysia. It had successfully curtailed Mahathir's procedures and Najib Razak with easy loans and showcasing projects and secured deals that were of strategic value for its ambition. But in May of 2018, the disaster struck for the Beijing when Najib was ordered out of the office by an electorate tired of the corruption scandals swirling around him, some of which involved China's high-profile investment deals in Malaysia. Mahathir, 93, was ordered into the office with a mandate that included getting the country out from under its suffocating debt. From Sri Lanka and Djibouti to Myanmar and Montenegro, many recipients of cash from China's huge infrastructure financing campaign, the Belt and Road Initiative have discovered that the Chinese investment brings with it less savory accompaniments, including the closed bidding process that result in inflated contracts and influx of Chinese labor at the expense of local workers. The fears are growing that China is using its overseas spending spear to gain footholds in some of the world's most strategic places and perhaps even the deliberately luring and vulnerable nations into debt traps in the Chinese dominance as US influence fades in the developing world. Malaysia warning China that they are not like Sri Lanka or Myanmar or Djibouti to have a base or to acquire the project without paying any debt for their own country. Less than a month after Modi declared to the World Economic Forum that India was open for businesses, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India has raised import duties to the highest in the 3 decades of India, setting the stage for the protracted trade battle. As he prepares to seek the re-election next year, Prime Minister Modi has been ensnared by the global way of protectionism that could threaten the foreign direct investments India needs to achieve the double-digit growth. He has made it more expensive to import parts for automobiles, cameras, televisions, electricity meters, and smartphones, risking trade disputes from the allies like US and Germany to rivals like China. India has taken a dramatic protectionist turn. Richard Rousseau, an Indian policy expert at the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies, wrote in a note, "The scale of India's protectionist leap is surprising and likely to elicit a strong response from the United States and other major trading partners." President Donald Trump of US signaled that tit-for-tat duties against India's barriers on motorcycles, while the German ambassador to India, Martin Ney, questioned the decision to raise the customs duty on the import of automobile components. The US Commerce Department on Tuesday said it was examining the import of welded pipes from India and the 5 other countries. All this could add up to bad news for India at the World Trade Organization. As the Indian economy is falling down because of Narendra Modi's defaults and useless reforms, this has accelerated at WTO, said Rahul Shukla, Delhi-based executive director at the PricewaterhouseCoopers Private Limited. If they really want to help local industries, there is so much more that could be done. And it's true that industry needs help, but these are the highest barriers we have seen in a long while. India's move comes as it faces the widest trade deficit in 3 years and its resilient rupee. Data from the government instituted Thursday, and though it is expected to show a pullback for January, India's yawning deficit with Asia's powers like China is a matter of concern. Indian imports from China has soared in the past few years, outpacing export and leaving the local industries, especially the medium to small scale industries, gasping for survival. Exports from $2.3 trillion economy have slowed at the time when the global economy is ticking higher. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley announced in February in his budget speech that the barrier would push the government's flagship Make in India program to encourage local manufacturing. Yet some believe the electoral costs incurred by the Prime Minister Modi after the chaotic roll-out of the national's goods and service taxes, including the significant disruption to the business with the demonetization and some cow-related issues and other details of useless policies in the Indian government, may have driven the government to resort to protectionism. The barrier will remain in the place for another 2 to 3 years to help small and medium companies, said Vanaja Sarna, the chairwoman of India's Central Board of Excise and Customs, in an interview. But the move may end hurting the local businesses, said Bipul Chatterjee, executive director at the New Delhi-based think tank Cuts International. A hike of 15 to 20% is not much for Chinese and the South Korean companies. They can easily absorb it. This will end up hurting India's competitiveness more than the government imagines, he said. More or less, the useless policies of GST, demonetization, and the Make in India schemes are not making India richer and not growing India's economy. Instead, it is making India's falling economy to the worst of its history because of one man's ruling India with no democracy policies. So what do you think of the useless demonetization, GSTs, and policies related to WTOs and FDA's investments and foreign deficits, and the factors of raising the import tax duties, which will not give India's Make in India policy to grow and making Indian economy to be a fall down?
Middle-income countries face a unique set of fiscal challenges. Investing in physical and social infrastructure is crucial for development, stability, and financing the budget. But raising capital is not easy. Governments must fund the projects at the lowest possible cost, with limited resources, deepening domestic markets, borrowing internationally, and developing capacity to handle more complex financial instruments.
Post your comments below, and if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and follow us on social networks and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. This is WEC Daily. Think big, think different. Bye.